First of all, I want to ask you about climate and the shift in tone or the shift in language from the Prime Minister saying, you know, that the path towards net zero by 2050 is something that he wants, but it's, well, the date is preferable before 2050. What do you make of that tone?
Look, I think that's very smart politics by the Prime Minister, and I think it really leaves the Labor Party in danger of being completely outflanked. That's not to say the Labor Party should jump to do more hairy-chested things, but the PM, you know, remember, they didn't pull out of the Paris Agreement. They say they're meeting their targets. We'll be able to judge that in not too many years. But if the PM successfully brings his party towards the centre on this by endorsing 2050 climate targets, Labor will lose one of its most significant campaignable issues. This is very clever politics by the Prime Minister, and I think Labor Party has to have a good hard look at how it's going to deal with a Prime Minister that keeps edging towards the centre in a very pragmatic way.
What does it mean, though, by using the word preferable? I mean, it's kind of hedging a bet, really, isn't it? That, well, yeah, it's hopeful before 2050, but it may well happen after 2050 as well.
Well, look, I think even Matt Canavan didn't know what to say when you asked him. And Matt's been a strong campaigner for the coal sector and the resources sector his entire political life. But even he didn't quite know how to deal with this, because the Prime Minister is bringing his party, his coalition, into the mainstream debate, which is most countries around the world. Now, China said they'll do it by 2060, but most other countries still say they're going to do it by 2050. So if the PM ultimately says that's his intention, even if he doesn't sign up publicly on the dotted line, he will absolutely leave Labor with very few opportunities to campaign on this issue, which has been a significant campaign issue for Labor for the last 10 or 15 years. So I think this is, again, evidence of the Prime Minister being much more fleeter of foot than people give him credit for.
Or bringing the Nats along for the ride might be his biggest challenge.
I think that ultimately they've got no choice. I mean, Matt and Barnaby are determined to destabilise Michael McCormack. They will use these issues. But what we've seen over time is when both Barnaby was Deputy Prime Minister and Matt was the Minister, they ultimately didn't make any difference in this debate.
Yeah.
They were able to get a few other boondoggles that kept the National Party backbench happy, but they didn't actually stop the PM in his move along this path.
Yeah, well, Laura's got Barnaby coming up in about 10 minutes' time, so not too far away. It'll be interesting to see what he's got to say. Just one of the issues that may keep bouncing back towards the PM, Craig Kelly, what does he do about that one?
Well, I think the Prime Minister's set an excellent tone about vaccination. He's talks about how he wants to get his kids vaccinated and all those sorts of things, but this is completely undermined when you've got a lunatic who is absolutely preaching virtually anti-vax messages. Now, he has to deal with them. You would think Craig Kelly understood that he owes Scott Morrison. Scott Morrison saved his bacon in his last pre-selection. Craig Kelly couldn't win a pre-selection in his own branches if his life depended on it. And for the PM, him to treat the PM like this just means that when it comes to the guaranteed next challenge to Craig Kelly, he's going to absolutely get knocked off. And he has got nothing he can do to complain about. He has just slapped the Prime Minister in the face yet again. This is lunatic stuff by Craig Kelly, and he deserves to be condemned. He deserves criticism, and he deserves the Prime Minister to pull him in and pull him into line. He is undermining the PM's vital and important message about everyone needs to get vaccinated.
And just finally, Stephen, the issue of Collingwood and the issue of racism around Collingwood Football Club. I know you're a fan of the football club. What did you make of the press conference yesterday? Eddie Maguire comes out talking about it being a proud day for the football club, meaning that it's an issue that they're trying to deal with now, but it's been received by a whole lot of criticism.
Look, I wouldn't have chosen the words that Eddie used. I think that an apology up front might have been a good place to start. I think the club and everybody associated with the club, myself included, all are embarrassed and, shamed almost by the stark findings in that report. And I think the club's got to do a lot to rebuild its trust with the Indigenous community. If you look at the findings in that report, I know the club will do that. But in terms of the tone, the message, Eddie's had a very difficult time dealing with this report. He's been part of all of the debates over the last couple of years around these issues. And I wouldn't have chosen the words that Eddie used.
Stephen Conroy, good to chat. We're out of time, but appreciate that. We'll talk to you again soon.